Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening in the market, what we can expect moving forward and all of that good stuff. So as per usual, well, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed, please don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc. Well, I do have a YouTube membership. The link is down below. It is the first link in the description of every video. For just $3 a month, you get access to my membership section on YouTube where, again, I share my thoughts, post updates, several updates. I mean, literally, I don't know, maybe 30 updates a day, depending on the day, of course. Lately, it's been a lot more because the market's, pretty volatile. Mainly on Tesla stock, right? Sometimes other stocks, but mainly on Tesla stock, of course. Or for $5 a month, you get access to everything I just said in the first tier, but also access to NVIDIA daily updates as well. I will be opening up the third tier pretty soon, probably like in a week for $6.99 or $7, which will include pretty much where I'll be focusing on other stocks as well on top of Tesla and NVIDIA if you're interested in just essentially random things I find plus Discord. Anyways, that's coming later. Anyway, all that being said, link is below. Jumping into it, Tesla. Closing the day with a pretty decent day, honestly, for the most part, right? Kind of following the market almost to a T for the most part, give or take, up pretty much 2.6%, closing at almost $280 per share. What does this mean moving forward for Tesla stock? Is Tesla stock, is the bottom in? Are we out of the woods? Can we finally get some rally from here? Can this stock stop sucking large D? That is the question. And that's the one we'll try to figure out today. So, like I said, Tesla is still, pretty much at the bottom of the channel, right? We're still in bottom picking territory. And, we're not out of the woods yet. I'll give you what I want to see for us to be out of the woods on different scales, like short-term and long-term. But we are in bottom picking territory, right? We're at the bottom of the channel. We're obviously in this massive weekly area of demand, which, we're holding up pretty well. RSI is exceptionally oversold. Even this right here, we're just very far away from the mean, at pretty extreme levels, historically speaking, for the stock on the weekly time frame. And if we close this week, keep in mind, if we close this week below pretty much 292, this will be the first time in the history of the stock that Tesla has ever had 7 consecutive weekly lower closures consecutively. Ever. Literally ever. So let's see if we make history this week. I mean, I don't know. I'll see. I mean, again, it's, technically speaking, the odds are not in our favor. It's never happened before. So technically speaking, based off those kind of stats, if you will, there's a pretty good chance we end the week above 393, and we do not print that, first ever 7 in a row. But again, we'll see. Obviously, you shouldn't trade solely off that statistic, but it's a pretty interesting one nonetheless. Just to show you at the sort of extremes that we're at right now. We're definitely at extremes, right? In terms of just the aggressive, almost instantaneous selling pressure that we are experiencing. Anyways, so the point I'm just trying to make is the fact that we are in bottom picking territory. Overall, nothing has changed. Even on the weekly, we're at, pretty much right at or more or less near this trend line. So again, that overall story that I've been talking about for, honestly, at this point, pretty much a week, really, it hasn't really changed, right? Because, these things take time. We're still in that general vicinity. However, this is where we want to jump into, maybe slightly lower time frames to get an idea as to, if we zoom in on, what the hell's going on if we zoom in, right? What is the stock even doing? So this is what I was sharing with my members, right? There's a few things I'm looking at right now that are starting to show promising signs. It's not even on the short time frames are we still, out of the woods just yet. There's still definitely work to be done, but promising signs are starting to show. What are those signs? Well, first and foremost, we have this little descending wedge that we've been in, right? That we started to develop, that we have officially broken out of. That's a good sign for Tesla, right? That's, obviously a promising sign. This is what I was sharing with my members, and I actually entered more shares on the breakouts, right? Now, obviously, I'm not all in or anything like that, but I did buy a little bit more today because I bought this, then I actually sold it to de-risk, and then I pretty much re-entered on more confirmation essentially. But again, I'm not going crazy because there's still more confirmation that we need. What is that extra confirmation? Well, what I'm looking for on Tesla stock, you can even take the market bias and make it as simple as possible. Honestly, you can, whichever way you want to look at it, whether it's the EMAs or whether it's the market bias, they kind of tell a similar picture where we're still very much in a downtrend. There's no question about that. We're still, even on the 1 hour trend, time frame rather, we are still in a downtrend, right? There's just no questions, right? These pretty much show the same picture. So what do we want to see for Tesla stock to end this, at the very least, short-term downtrend? Well, there's 2 things I'm looking at. One of which was, of course, which is not a thing anymore, but is to break out of this downtrend, descending wedge. We did. That's good. That is a good sign. That's step number 1. What is step number 2? Step number 2 is going to be to reclaim this kind of general range right here, right? Pretty much, honestly, 285 to make it, pretty simple, about $285. Like that needs to get reclaimed. Why does that need to get reclaimed? Because for the last week, for like literally the last week, it's been holding us as support, right? This about 285 range, right? And of course, give or take a few dollars, but around there, right? You can see for the whole week, pretty much, it's been holding us as some decent support. And then we finally broke down, and you can see just yesterday we rejected right at that level. It's just classic support becomes resistance, and sometimes the opposite, of course, is true as well. Like the weekly, for instance, hasn't just one more reminder. This is on a huge time frame. Again, you have to remember the longer or like the bigger the time frame, the more strength or important, I guess it is. You know what I mean? In this case, of course, right? With this weekly time frame, of course, showing this substantial level of resistance in the past, you will only expect that this would be substantial level of support. And so far it is acting as such, which is obviously good. Anyway, back to the 1 hour time frame, just to show you, just to kind of demonstrate that example. But back to the 1 hour time frame. So we want to break out of it, right? We essentially want to break out of this 285, right? Not only will that reclaim this level that, of course, is currently acting as a resistance, evidently from here, you can see, but this would also break above this high, which would be just more of a bullish structure forming. Now, the one risk that we will face that will potentially be something to watch out for that can trap some longs if they get too excited is, now that we broke out of this, I want to do that for now, is that, we could unfortunately be in theory forming a bit of a bear flag that can look something like this. But the thing is even if we form this bit of a bear flag where we take the Fibonacci even from here, right, we could still easily make our way, honestly, at the very least, I think, to this kind of 285 range, but I'd expect higher. Honestly, potentially tomorrow or Friday, we can still make our way to 300. Like that is still a possibility. Like we can easily make our way over to 300. Unfortunately, that does have a risk of this bear flag. So obviously we'll kind of monitor it as is. However, the one thing that can potentially reduce that risk is the fact that if we do actually make it that way, if we break 285, we turn this level back into support, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we break above the high, we have this doji candle from yesterday that could signal bottom signals. Today, we essentially printed a more or less inside candle where we traded within yesterday's range, et cetera, et cetera. But if we do break that high, what I want to see is this, right? Which could be good for the bulls. So we have the EMAs, right? Obviously, we have the EMAs here. You can see this downtrend has been very steep, right? Ever since all the way back up here from 350, which feels like aeons ago, but it was not even that long ago. We've been very aggressive on this downtrend, and not once have the EMAs been flipped, right? We haven't even come up to touch the 50 EMA once, which is, interesting. But if we make our way back up above 285 and especially back above, honestly, about the low 290s, what that's going to do, and start closing candles above that, what that's going to start doing is not only is the 8 going to cross back over the 21 on the 1 hour time frame, which again is a good sign, but once these two also get back above the 50, so obviously they're both crossed, but then they also both go over the 50, which is the white line, that should signal the fact that the bearish momentum, at least the very aggressive bearish momentum, should definitely subside. And even if we get a sell-off once again, it's probably not going to be anything as intense at the very least. Theoretically, of course, obviously nothing's perfect, but that's what it would signal to me. Because again, it would show that the bearish momentum has officially started to fade, right? Kind of like even here you can see, right? Temporarily you can see, it faded, very aggressive sell-off. And then we finally came back up. You can see the EMA started to cross bullish. We went above, and obviously this ended up being a false flag, which this is where you start confirming things better on the daily chart, which that did show warning signals. But the point is the fact that we did get that bit of a rally, and right now, based on where we are, we're kind of like right here is where I see us right now. We're kind of like around here, which is why even if we get this rally up here like we did here, which will be pretty much around $300 per share, there would still be that risk of this essentially, bear flag playing out, unfortunately. So, it's a pretty delicate situation nonetheless, right? It's going to be a difficult one to, proceed properly. There's no question about that. But that's kind of the idea on the 1 hour time frame, right? Google, like Amazon, Google's kind of already doing it. You can see Google, right? Obviously, huge downtrend. And then, of course, after it, has officially stopped bleeding that aggressively, came back up to the 50. EMA's flipped, and then we're now closing above the 50 and closing from yesterday's high, essentially, which is not that bad of a sign overall, right? It's a potentially promising sign, right? There's potential here, and that's kind of what I want to see, right? Same with like Microsoft, pretty much the exact same idea, right? That's kind of what I want to see on Tesla, right? We need to make our way back up here. But at the very least, I'd be surprised if Tesla doesn't come up to about this 290 range on the 1 hour time frame. Honestly, potentially as early as tomorrow, but probably by Friday. I'll be surprised if it's later than Friday. I'd expect, honestly, tomorrow at this rate to retest this 50, which again is about 292-ish, give or take, right? That's kind of what I expect right now on Tesla stock. But let's see how it actually, plays out. But this is where you want to start looking at, the slightly longer time frames, because this is obviously where the real picture is, right? This is where it's going to really start telling us what the hell is happening with the stock, right? And what we can really expect overall in terms of trend. So the daily is this, right? Obviously, we're in a bearish trend. I don't think anyone's surprised about that. That's not really much of a question. We're making lower lows. We are at bottom picking territory, but we are still in a downtrend. And I want to make this clear. And this is what I told my members earlier. Even if theoretically, let's just say this is just purely theoretical, but let's say Tesla spikes tomorrow aggressively 15%, just again, for fun, right? Just for fun. Let's say Tesla spikes 15% tomorrow and it goes up to 320 something, like 322, 323, something like that, right? Even like people are going to get very euphoric. Everyone's going to get excited. But even on that kind of crazy spike in one day, we're still in a downtrend, guys. We're still going to be in a downtrend. There is still going to have, we're still going to have problems. So what actually needs to be done for this downtrend to be done? What actually needs to be done for Tesla stock to get the hell out of this, pretty unfortunate situation that it's in and feel alive again, and for the bulls to really regain control? Well, there's two main things I would argue, right? The main thing, one of those two things is obviously breaking out of this downward channel, right? We're obviously in a pretty, decently steep downward channel on the daily time frame. A break out of that up here somewhere, however long it takes. I don't know how long it'll take. Maybe it'll be in March. Maybe it'll be in April. I don't know. But, sometime breaking out of this downward channel. That's step number one, right? Because technically speaking, we can get a bounce from here and then come back down again to this trend line. Then we get a bounce up here, then reject and come back again to the trend line that will continue going. Like theoretically, we can continue essentially ping-ponging like this down until we break out, which I think we will at some point. I'll be pretty surprised if we don't, but it's just a matter of when. Right? How long is that going to take? Nobody has the answer to that. So that's step number one. We want to break out of this downtrend. Step number two, something that would also, add confidence to that are the EMAs. The EMAs are very powerful stuff, right? If you follow these EMAs, correctly, you can ride very aggressive trends, but you can also avoid very aggressive pitfalls, essentially. Something that I avoided a decent amount of, but definitely still got caught a little bit. I'm not going to lie. That was before I was using this, unfortunately. And I didn't really set a proper stop loss. I'll be honest. That was a mistake. Things happen. Again, that's not like I'm not like all in or anything like that, but essentially I had a cash secret put that's still technically not a sign, but let's just say it is a bit under the water right now. But yeah, so essentially what you want to see on the EMAs is, you want to see this kind of, you can see the white, the red, and the green pretty much flipped, but it'll take time, right? It is a daily time frame. This will take time. I mean, Tesla's pretty aggressive, so it might take less time than normal, of a normal stock. But what you want to see is you want to see the green at the bare minimum start crossing back above the red. Like minimum is what you want to be seeing, right? Like absolute bare minimum. That's what you want to be seeing on Tesla stock to starting to get, potentially bullish. What's even better is once they cross and then they both, the price goes back above the 50 EMA and the EMAs also go above the 50 EMA. As an example, let's use down here, for instance. Let's use this downtrend, right? So here was a substantial downtrend. Right, and you can see we had a small little crossover right over here, but and this had potential. Like this could have been it, but obviously then you take into account. I still remember this one actually. This was that massive bear flag. It's not perfect, right? And obviously because we're still below technically the 50 EMA, it's not perfect. Like it could have had potential, but it's not perfect, right? So that's what we had the 50 EMA as kind of like that extra, factor. Once this downtrend has finished, once again, we had that nice little flip here, right? Massive spike. We had that bullish flip on the EMAs. And then we kind of started going sideways. Price obviously didn't do a whole lot. But the point is the fact that you can see once the sideways trend and whatever has finished, and the EMAs have both convincingly crossed back above the 50, and you can see the green is above the red, which is bullish, and they're above the 50, which is also bullish. You can see what actually happened not that long after. Tesla's very good at these kind of massive aggressive moves like this when it comes to momentum, right? It's a very momentum favored stock, right? That's why it's so volatile. But that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, right? So you want to watch for these kind of situations to unfold. Obviously, you'll have some kind of chop in between like this, which is a little bit confusing, of course. But the point is the fact that once, this kind of crossed back to bullish, more convincingly, like this was a bit of a trap, but then, okay, you would got stopped out here, but then it did it again here, you would have re-entered, and look at that beautiful wave to the, to the upside, essentially. And similar to here, you know, a bit of a bearish crossover here. You start taking a little bit of caution. They started getting below the 50. Okay, a little bit of extra caution. Bam, rocket. And now look at that. They both cross bullish. They're both above the 50. You look for a nice entry. You find that entry over here, you know, and once again, it rockets up. So again, I'm just using that as an example to show you what we're kind of looking for, right? And that's pretty much roughly what we're going to be looking for in the coming, honestly, weeks. It'll take time. But one thing that you can also use these EMAs for is mean reversion, right? And what does that mean is, well, you know, when the stock is still too far away from the means, for instance, in this case, when Tesla's even this far away from the 9 EMA or 8 EMA, keep in mind, the 8 EMA is very, very aggressive. It's I have it on 8. It's going to follow price like pretty aggressively. So when we're this low and this far underneath the EMA like that, like especially the 8s, there's a damn good chance we're going to snap back at the very least back to the 8 EMA, which is again currently sitting at about the mid to low 290s, which I expect happening probably tomorrow, maybe Friday, right? Because despite how aggressive you're being sold off, it's pretty ridiculous to even be that far away from this EMA, right? You can kind of see over here it also happened, right? We got really far away. Like look how far away we were from the 9 EMA, right? Or 8. I keep saying 9. From the 8 EMA, we were 9% below the 8 EMA. Like that's too extreme for something that, you know, this aggressive can't even follow the price. You know what I mean? And then we snap back to it, right? So you can even use this as mean reversion as well. It's actually pretty effective as well in that kind of sense when things are just too crazy in one direction or the other. Anyways, that's kind of overall what I'm looking for on Tesla stock. I keep going on too long with these videos. Hopefully you guys like these longer videos. It's just sometimes I spend a lot of time looking at these things. Sometimes I kind of just like, I don't know, I just have a lot of thoughts in my head, I guess. I don't know, I just keep talking about it. Anyways, moving over to Tesla stock, right? On the options flow, a lot of weekly and next week calls have been coming in, which is very interesting. So down here, there was a lot right here. You can see a lot of calls came in for Tesla stock back when it was still around the 272s. It is obviously now pretty much at 280, which is good, right? A lot of calls came in for this week. So I wouldn't be surprised if these profits start getting taken today or maybe tomorrow if we get that rally back up to 290-ish. But on top of that, towards the end of the day, we've also seen some nice calls coming in for next week as well, right? 300 strikes, etc. So not bad. I think the bulls are definitely looking for Tesla to make its way back up higher. I think the market's actually potentially looking to make its way back up higher. There is a bit of an issue though. Like SPY, for instance, needs to get back above 285. But I do believe if SPY, for instance, can get back above 285 roughly and start closing back above 285, the market there's a damn good chance the market should begin its relief rally moving forward. So let's watch for that, right? Let's watch for that. This market does require patience. Everything I'm entering right now is strictly shares. I'm barely even selling cash secured puts because sometimes it'll be forced to buy. The thing with cash secured puts that's a problem sometimes is the fact that you're forced to buy in lots of 100. And sometimes I don't want to buy 100 shares of Tesla like right off the bat. You know what I mean? Like it's a bit hard to space out your buys if you're just forced to buy 100 shares in those lots. You know, you're 100 here, 100 here. 100, you know, it adds up pretty quickly. Tesla's not a cheap stock, right? It's almost $30,000 per 100 shares almost, right? So even then, I'm actually just straight up raw buying, like raw dogging shares right now. That's what I'm doing. But anyways, that's it for this video. My God, it's 18 minutes. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.